Up next, we have a presentation from the Creative Quest Foundation. The Creative Quest Foundation was established to bring awareness to the importance of diversity, inclusion, and theme entertainment, and to take action against the racial and bias agenda that hinders that goal from being achieved. The Creative Quest Foundation was started by RJ Temple, who is the CEO of Upbeat Imagination Workshop, based in Orlando, Florida, which is one of the few corporations in the country focused on themed entertainment that is owned by an African American. He's a graduate of Georgia Southern University and the Berklee School of Music, and has had a career in themed entertainment stretching over 20 years. We are super excited to have them here today, and we'll go ahead and get started.
Hi, I'm Nick, and thanks for tuning in to CQF TV. The Creative Quest Foundation focuses on minorities pursuing a career in themed entertainment. From writing shows for a local theater to developing the next major attraction for a cutting-edge theme park, CQF provides resources and opportunities to build your passion for creative development and the arts. Diversity and inclusion is the future of the industry. Taking action to diversify talent in the creative space and empowering leaders will take themed entertainment to the next level. CQF believes in community and sharing knowledge to those who come from all walks of life. We provide educational events and activities such as mixers, workshops, speed networking sessions, artist showcases, concerts, and more. We move together as a family to bring about positive change and promote equal opportunity for everyone with a love for the arts. Join our initiative celebrating the power of diversity in the world of themed entertainment. Check out the latest news, media, merch, and more on our website, creativequestfoundation.com.
What's up, guys? My name is RJ Temple. Again, I'm with the Creative Quest Foundation and founder of the Upbeat Imagination Workshop. It's a pleasure to have you guys here with us tonight. We're going to dive into some really important topics about diversity and inclusion, and not just that, about talking about how important that is in the future of themed entertainment. Moving on to the next slide. Creative Quest Foundation, we really focused on the importance of diversity and inclusion and minorities. There's quite an array of talent that it requires to create theme park attractions and immersive experiences. And so it's really important to celebrate the power of diversity and having different walks of life, different voices in the conversations to be able to move forward the amazing stories that are to come. And so what you want to do is, and this is really more of an awareness for all of you that want to be able to do amazing things in the creative development world of themed entertainment. You want your teams to reflect the guests that you want to reach. And you want your creative decisions to be with diverse teams then that's the key and also the future of what's to come for the themed entertainment industry. And so we broke down 3 pillars with CQF of how to create a diverse creative team and more focus on the importance of diversifying the creative space with these 3 pillars. And they are gather, grow, and give. So let's go into the first pillar. So gather is to create environments where minorities are welcome to learn and network. One thing about when I first got started is trying to figure out, okay, how do I break in? You know, as a person of color, you don't really hear the term themed entertainment. I know for many years I've been a musician and also have wrote many shows with Upbeat Imagination Workshop. I had a kids series called RJ and the Upbeats, similar to Sesame Street, and it had 12 different stage plays, 50 original characters. It was way before I moved into Orlando, Florida, where I got a lot of my experience in themed entertainment. So I didn't really know I had the experience for 20 years until 6 years ago. And a lot of that is due to the lack of representation. And then the assumptions that, oh, I don't really qualify, or I don't know what to do in this particular realm. How do I fit in? And so going to a lot of these mixers and going to these workshops and stuff, I didn't really see a lot of people of color. And so with Creative Quest, what we try to do is we try to create, environments for all walks of life and especially people of color, to come and learn and gather. And the goal is to not only do that, but to also create an environment where you can be yourself. Now, of course, being in the situation that we're in, with COVID-19, in the middle of a pandemic, we have a lot of different virtual options that we're working on. So moving on to the next slide, we really created a great group on Facebook entitled Minority Park. And Minority Park is a great platform. Of course, any social media, it's a great platform for you to connect and network with others. And the cool thing about this group is that you have people that's just getting started in the themed entertainment industry that's of color, all the way up to people that's been in the industry for 20, 30 years, and they can mix and mingle and talk to each other. We have live events. We also have giveaways. And also great opportunities that we have on our job boards as well. So if you're a person of color and you're interested in really digging into what themed entertainment is all about, I highly recommend that you join us on Minority Park on Facebook. Moving to the next pillar. Our next pillar is to grow together. We provide resources and workshops to develop a healthy career in themed entertainment. One thing that's cool about what we're doing with Midsummer is that it's giving us an opportunity for us to be able to move forward in our agenda, to create more workshops and more opportunities for people to learn. Again, I was talking about how in my background, I didn't have much experience and didn't know where to turn. And so having a resource like Creative Quest, where we can create videos and we can create, one-on-one situations. Especially we just worked with a major company recently that just gave over 20 people of color an opportunity to learn about their company, a very established company that does cartoons and films. It really was a great opportunity for them. And so having an opportunity to grow and with workshops and build relationships is great. And another thing too, with the Midsummer Scream t-shirts, every t-shirt that's sold, $5 would go towards our program to create more videos and workshops for kids to learn. And so this is really a great feat, and it's also one of my favorite pillars that we need to get covered in this industry. Next is the importance of giving. Now, one thing about when you learn about information, it's important to share it. It's important to bring more awareness to what does it take to do this thing that we love. And so the goal is to spread the word and to share what you've learned, to end the cycle of what I call creative segregation. And the reason why I say that is because if you look at a lot of the boardrooms, you look at a lot of the groups that are making a lot of the creative decisions, they're not really diversified. And so in a way, that still is a form of segregation. And so you want to make sure that we do our best work to make sure that we have excellent diversity groups and in every single major company, and then pursue it together as a team. And another thing too that's interesting about being in this realm is trying to avoid what's called the checkbox syndrome. and so it's especially in the situation of George Floyd and all the new motions of making more awareness about people of color and the choices that we want to be able to, add in our choices that we want to be able to join in on certain things and conversations. We want to be able to have those opportunities, but we want it to be done organically. We want you to just not say, oh, we're all my people of color, look, they're on my team, take a look. That's what's called the checkbox syndrome, where it's like, okay, this is more of a display than actually paying attention to the issues that got us here and just taking action. And so there's no need to make announcements. Just do it. Just take action immediately. So if you see people, especially to all of you out there in major companies, if you want to diversify your teams, you don't have to put, I need 20 years of experience, for this person to have 20 or 30 years of experience, and they must be a person of color. I understand that that's an important thing to do, but at the same time, you don't want to kind of do this organically. You don't want to have the checkbox syndrome. And so if you want to give an opportunity, just give it and just see what the manifestation is when you have a good heart behind it. All right, so let's move on. The cool thing about our relationship now with Midsummer Scream, and which, by the way, thank you so much, Midsummer Scream and Dave and their team for such an awesome event, and also T at USC. We really appreciate you guys for having us today. This is really an awesome opportunity to bring more awareness to what does it take to have diversity and inclusion in themed entertainment, especially in the horror genre. And this is the part of my presentation where it's going to get a little deep. So make sure you hold on to your seatbelt. But this is going to bring more awareness to why it's important, why this relationship between Midsummer Scream and Creative Quest is. I narrowed down 3 things that we want to achieve in this new relationship with Midsummer. And the first thing is understanding the history of fear in themed entertainment. And keeping in mind that fear is what causes, horror. Of course, is fear mongering actually paying attention to what are people afraid of at this time. And at certain times of the industry, it was about, clowns are scary now, or dolls and puppets are scary now, or and then you had aliens for a while, especially in the 50s. Aliens are going to come from outer space, and Roswell and Area 51, all these different things. But there also was a time where there was a fear of people of color, especially slaves retaliating on their slave masters. And so moving into the next picture, I'm going to give you some very deep visuals of where themed entertainment has been. In the first top left is an actual shot of a character and was in a film called The Birth of a Nation in 1915. And the film portrays African Americans, many whom are played by white actors in blackface. And in this film, they label people of color as unintelligent and sexually aggressive towards white women. And the film presents the Ku Klux Klan as a heroic force necessary to preserve American values and the white supremacist social order. It was also the first film ever featured in the White House, where President Woodrow Wilson praised the film for its accuracy, even though the plot was part fiction. And even with the NAACP protesting the film for its inaccuracy and the misplacement of who people of color are, in 1992, and this is true statement, the Library of Congress deemed the film culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant and selected it for preservation in the National Film Registry. This is a perfect example of missing the mark and laying the foundation of misconception for PSCs that we see today. Moving back on, you can go back to that slide again. We're going to move into the other ones. And so the goal is to justify the structure of slavery. And that's why that film was actually done. And it really was a very misguided film. And it just did so much fear mongering on people of color. Another option, not option, but another example is Muse Brothers. That's in the top right corner there. The Muse Brothers were actual albino brothers from Virginia. At the age of 9, they were stolen by a bounty hunter and stolen from their mother. And the bounty hunter told them that their mother had died, and they were sold to the circus and freak shows known as the Ecuadorian cannibals. Yet another example of dehumanizing people of color and fear mongering people of color, and while monetizing on their skills. On the bottom right is another example, and keep in mind these are all in the early 1900s, and so it wasn't hundreds and hundreds of years ago. It was only a century ago, so Scottsboro boys. There were 9 young Black men charged for allegedly raping 2 white women in 1931 in Alabama. After being tossed in the justice system, getting sentenced 75 years to life with no proof of that situation, the women finally came out and said they fabricated the whole accusation. This is kind of like the early age Karen, if you will. This has been so many situations where you've seen this, and it has labeled people of color to be a certain way. And keep in mind, all these things are tied into how the themed entertainment industry has been developed. Look into the imagery of King Kong in 1933, which is around the same time with this situation of fear of people of color retaliating against others in the Caucasian community. That the visuals of King Kong, especially knowing the history of people of color being called gorillas and being called apes, just the odds of them being able to monetize on that fear, utilizing the King Kong character with the female. And so fear is heavily based on what people are afraid of at the time. And in this era, it was the fear of Black people retaliating. And it's such a dark history of slavery and segregation. And this is a perfect example of not having enough diversity in the creative process, causing things like this to happen. And so this is really this is amazing. Me and the founder of Midsummer Scream had extensive conversations about this, and I highly recommend that you guys check out Horror Noir, a great video on and film highlighting this whole history on Shudder. Moving on to the next slide. The next thing that we want to do in this new relationship is to focus on progressive change and how that is a good thing. Now, move on to the next slide. When you hear the word progressive, this is where a lot of faces like, oh my goodness, what you said progressive, oh my. And so, and what's so funny is progressive is actually a good word. And it's funny how, especially in this new political environment, how that word has been manipulated and adjusted to have a different meaning. But progression is a positive thing. It actually is meant for you to be able to move forward and to make changes where it's necessary. Let's go to the quote next. It's by Debashish Mrida. He's an American physician and philosopher. And he said, there is no life without change. The real tragedy is that we are always fearful of change and resist it vehemently. Vehemently is another way of saying forceful or passionate. And so it's amazing how some people can be afraid of something and not have the right information and be passionate about that. And having that focus, and again, in themed entertainment, having a place where you just get settled and you're not able to move and adjust. That's going to hinder you from being able to create an environment that has diversity and inclusion. And lastly, we have what's called representation. Representation is truly necessary. Now, the whole goal of themed entertainment, especially when you're doing diversity and inclusion, you want to create characters and content that can connect with any viewer. Any viewer. You want to, because the thing is, your content is a reflection of the world that we live in. That's how it should be. So you should see different faces, different walks of life, different nationalities and colors and tones. That should all be celebrated in your content. And you should also have a team that connects with that. And for you to be able to achieve that, you have to have a team alongside to be able to move forward that narrative. Moving forward to the next photo, here's some great examples of representation. This is some kids series that we're working on called Upbeats TV. That's going to come out from the left to right. You have Phoebe, you have Twist, Kip, and Leba, and just to see the different shades, the different kind of hair, the different personalities. This is what themed entertainment should be like. In the top right corner as well as another kids series we worked on called OBF Kids. You have Rex and Ruby on the outside and Bo in the middle. Again, a celebration of different colors and different types of communities, and it's not only shown in a 3D animated space, but it's vibrant, and it shows the importance of hair, and especially with people of color, it's all about hair. It's all about how that's portrayed, and so it's not like how it was, when I showed you those earlier shots from the 1900s of a misinterpretation of culture. It actually is accuracy is what we should all focus on. And not dehumanizing people of color because they're different. And then not only that, being able to be consistent with that in themed entertainment as you're creating shows and rides and attractions. And so this is really important. These are all very deep things, but this is the reason why diversity and inclusion is important. This is the reason why we do what we do. This is the reason why we continue to beat this drum again and again. And it's to move forward a different type of culture, because again, we have so much cleaning to do, especially as a community, to be able to make change. And so with Creative Quest Foundation, we really focus on making that a major priority. And so it's truly is a pleasure to be a part of this whole thing, again, with Tia USC and also at Midsummer Screen, to be able to move our initiative forward and to not only do that, but to make change all across the board in themed entertainment, so we can all tell stories, because we're all storytellers and we want to be able to make a difference together in the community. Okay. All right. So moving forward into that, we're going to get into an amazing panel and conversation. First up, we're going to bring in our two special guests. Our first guest we're going to bring in is Forjindam Bailey. As a Cameroonian-born MFA graduate of Columbia University in NYC, she brings her rich, diverse background in content development and experiential marketing, leads global business development, branding, and communications for Micro 2 Inc., an experienced design, production, and top media company by Inc. 500. Micro 2 operates in North America and Europe, where she has collaborated as a creative director for Bollywood Parks Dubai, Princess Paisley's Park Experience, T-Mobile HTC's corporate tours, and more. She's also behind the development of award-winning brand experiences for HBO, SXS, Westworld, Games of Thrones, and Netflix, The Irishman, Little Italy Takeover. Free also has been featured on Fast Company, Huffington Post, Essence Magazine, KTLA, and serves as an event chair and board member for the Ryman Arts Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to transforming the lives of young artists through the visual arts education. Free, everyone.
Hi. How are you?
May, how are you?
Good. You forgot the part about my favorite dessert.
Let's see. I didn't have that documentation.
I mean, what's the bio without, some of the really important things? So no, it's really fun to be here. How are you?
I'm good. It's truly a pleasure to have you here, and with your excellent experience in this field, we are looking forward to hearing your perspective on some of the important conversation we're going to have about diversity and inclusion. So thank you so much for being here.
Very excited to be here.
Thank you. And also, finally, we have David Ruzicka. He is a creative thinker with a weird last name and even weirder dreams. During the day, he helps themed entertainment companies, mostly for bright, shiny, family-friendly theme park rides and shows. In the dark and dreadful night, he consults with immersive theater companies and haunted attractions. And he has served as a freelance creative director, show director, and writer for Michael 2, Walt Disney Imagineering, Universal Creative, Marvel, Lionsgate, Paramount, and more. Some of his key collaborations include Hunger Games attractions at Motion Gate Dubai, the Fallout 76 activation escape room at E3, and Creep Lore, an immersive theatrical horror walkthrough in association with Amazon Prime. David, everybody. What's up, man?
What's going on? So I hate to say it, but you also didn't put my favorite dessert in there either. So,
okay, well, we're gonna have to make up. Okay, let's just go. So let's get this out of the way. So what's your favorite dessert? Let's just do that.
What's free? I want free to start first. So.
Chocolate mousse, and I'll fight anyone who objects. Chocolate mousse.
Chocolate mousse.
Chocolate mousse. Okay, Dave, what about you?
I'm not gonna object because I think chocolate mousse is pretty great. My personal thing, I usually go for like some kind of a berry crumble or pie, like boysenberry or like that. Can't go wrong.
Nice.
Very ritzy of you.
That is ritzy of me.
Crumbling on your dessert. I keep it simple. I'm a strawberry dude.
Oh, boo.
Yeah.
Strawberry, and I'm sure the chat page is probably going to have some comments about that, but come on.
Fine. Make sure you send it to my house, though. I love strawberry. But let me do this. Because I'm free. I'm going to put Dave on blast real quick. Because one thing about you, Dave, and I remember being a performer in the theme park industry, and I was working backstage, and I don't know if you know the story, Free, but he was a stage manager at the show that I was working on.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he used to come through all the time, check on us, make sure we weren't crapping stuff up, of course. But we built a relationship there. And I remember I was invited to, and this kind of really ties into diversity and inclusion because he's such a great example of why I'm here today. It was a event at the Crooked Can in Winter Park, and it was a social gathering. And I was like, okay, well, let me get my booklets and about the Upbeat Imagination workshop. I had my bag. This is my interpretation of Suitcase and the Dream for a person of color here, and of course I went there. Everybody was all clicked up, weren't talking to me, and I was sitting there like trying to, trying to join in, and it wasn't working. And I remember seeing Dave across the way, and he was talking. I went straight to him. I was like, "Oh, I didn't know he was here," and I didn't know he had a background writing and doing stuff as well. I just thought he was just a stage manager, and so he told me all this stuff. And he was the only guy that took my flyer that night. And
really?
Yes. And what's so interesting about this story is that, I went home and I was just like, oh, I really want to get in this industry, but it's just so hard to get in. Like, no one really gave me a chance. 2 days later, Dave sent me an email and he said, oh, man, I love what you're doing with this Upbeat Imagination workshop. I want you to get to know this person. He gave me information to this contact. That contact led me to another contact. And that contact led me to another, where it ended up where I got a job. And then I got a job that got me a job. And I'm looked up and now I have a whole career. So I want to tell you, thank you, Dave. I'm gonna put you on blast. I know we don't. I know I wanted to tell you this at the time a long time ago, but I really appreciate you because you are an example of what people of color needed. You know, they needed an opportunity to be heard, and you get the chance. So thank you, my friend. Thank you.
I appreciate that, and I mean, and I'm really happy to say too. Now RJ is on the board with me at Slice Creative Network, which was the thing I think that started this all for you too. So no, it's such a joy for me to find people who are like trying to figure out how to get into the industry and connect them. And it's amazing how just one little act, people are like, how do we start promoting a diverse and inclusive environment? And all it takes is small things like that to start the fire. So it's an honor, seriously.
Oh, it's a pleasure, man. I'll take that one to my grave, and I really appreciate everything you did with that. All right, guys. So let's go into this conversation about diversity and inclusion. Ooh, people are so afraid. Why are they so afraid? There's no reason to be afraid about this. This is the progression of our industry. So let's talk about it. So Free, being in a position as a person of color where you make major decisions about the story of a project, and able to have a diverse team at Michael too, which is awesome. But there still are moments where there still is profiling and discrimination. A lot of people don't understand that it doesn't matter what role you have, you still face these same issues. And so how do you maneuver through those moments as a person of color, especially on the executive level?
It's a good question, and it's an interesting one because I don't know any other way to navigate the world except as who I am, in my skin, in my gender, in my hair, in my head wrap. So there is no alternative other than whatever is the official label of the time, whether it's person of color, Black, African American, whatever you want to label it. That is how we have to perceive the world and go through it. So that said, for me, it's just coming at it from a place of authenticity and asking why this, why now, and is this the best way to tell this story? Right. We've been spoiled at Myco too because we don't particularly approach things from the person of color. We approach experiences and the development of those teams, as should many groups, from who's the right sensibility for this, who has the right perspective or skill set. And skill set doesn't always mean number of years doing that quote unquote role. Skill set or sensibility has more to do with passion and creative problem solving and a unique approach or sensibility to an experience or to a story that makes it different. Because at the end of the day, in our industry, we're always vying to be different, to surpass what the next person did, and to make it something that hasn't been done or seen before. And what better way to do that than to have a room of people from all walks of life? And so if that's the barometer or the North Star as you're planning your development process, before you even get into the design and production, but as you go further back into the kinds of partnerships or relationships that you want to have, the types of projects that you want to be aligned with, that starts informing the look, the canvas of the team that you're going to be working with. So I never go into projects or developments thinking, how would a person of color approach this haunt experience? We're all human. If you start from story, emotional connection, which is something that unites all of us. If you think about, your guest from a humanity perspective, as opposed to a person of color, it's not saying being blind to it. It's just saying, let's start with the essence of what makes for great storytelling: love, hate, anger, conflict, drama, all these things that evoke a certain emotional response. And if you're true to whatever that core story is, the face that you put on it, not just in the final product, but in the design iteration of it, is going to hopefully resonate because it's coming at it from that authentic place. And so we've been fortunate because we just tend to attract diverse groups of people because they are coming at it from that storytelling perspective as opposed to race. And we can go into that, later, because I know we have a lot of questions and comments about it, but it's not something that we consciously drive toward, but I do think it's something that's more informed by the team that's creating the work, not by the end product.
Exactly. That's well said. And moving to you, Dave. Having a history creating horror themed attractions too. There's an art to creating a story that moves forward from room to room. What are some tips that you can give to someone from all walks of life to create an unforgettable haunted experience since we're in Midsummer Scream?
Yeah, I mean, I've been playing with a lot of weird formats in horror lately and in experiences, but I still am definitely a big fan of the walkthrough for the sort of cinematic quality of the way that you can move through things. I think the stuff that's under thought of sometimes is transitions and the dynamics. Like, I think that things don't, and it's the same as any story. It's like, it doesn't work if it's just blast after blast of things happening to you. It's got its quiet moments. It's got its bigger moments too. But I think like at least for me right now, especially thinking of things in the pandemic, when we're almost being forced to rethink some of our practices. There's a person that Free and I both know, Malcolm Darrell from Disney, who
shout out Malcolm if you're watching.
Yeah. He said a thing to me a little while ago that I thought was really amazing about interrogating practices. And we were talking about it culturally, but I think it's just as much true in the design side and walkthroughs, which is right now is the time to, if you're making an unforgettable experience, to really go back and think of everything from outside your own head and try to really look at it from the layer of, somebody who hasn't already been in the story with you for years and months. And that's a really, really hard thing to do. The other thing that I feel like I realized during this time, I had like an epiphany, which is that if there's one word that I feel like makes the experiences we do remembering, or something people remember, is audacity. Yeah. Which is that feeling of like, I can't believe they did that, or I can't believe I'm seeing that. And that's hard because you have to fight for audacity the whole time you do your design process. It's so easy to lose. But it comes from just really understanding how to use your full psychological toolkit, using all the senses that you have, in an experience. And I think that the things that we can employ, like Free said, that are universal for all humankind, are the things to really, I guess, prey upon. Because for horror, sometimes we think about it a little bit like that. I was working on an experience recently where we just had a person sitting by themselves in a chair in the dark, and we had a voiceover saying, don't think about, the things behind you, don't think about what's behind you. And again, that taps into, at the most basic human level, all the fears that we have. And there's something that kind of like lays some eggs in your brain that hopefully it's not just the scare in the moment, but hopefully like a day or so from then you think about that. That's the real goal.
And it's a slippery slope too, right? When you think of fear as a device to lure people in and to entertain them through that fear, to do it authentically, to really tap into, the good stuff, when it comes to haunts, you're almost borderline, you're sort of stepping into very uncomfortable territory.
For sure.
And that fear, yes, you gave really good examples of clowns and some of the archetypes that we've adopted over the years. But if we're looking at fear today and really exploring what does it mean to tap into our guest's fear, is that entertainment? Is it exploitation? Is it torture? Is it harassment? I mean, these are things that under the prism of entertainment and really saying that we're creating a haunt, what is that fine line between really tapping into fear now as it exists today that could be very different 2 years from now or 3 years from now, and how much of that haunt experience is still also aspirational, right? Some of the fantasy, that supports these environments, these wonderful scapes that, we've worked together, and David and I have worked on some really fun ones. Underneath that fear, there's still a sense of escapism. There's still a sense of other world that isn't reality. Not to say that there aren't real reality-based haunt experiences, but fear is a really tricky thing. And if you really want to do it authentically, as we've talked about, and we've seen that word thrown, earlier in the series today, how do you do that in today's light, under the guise of a haunt, while being diverse, while being welcoming to everyone? Is that possible? I don't know that we can really answer that, in this conversation, but I'll tell you, it's a lot easier to have that audacity when the people behind the decision-making process, when the content makers, when the decision makers, when the financiers, when they are also a reflection of that audience, not just the end result. It's a lot easier to have that audacity when you're bringing more people to the table.
Yeah, you said it earlier, Free. I think perspectives ends up being the most important thing, and it's bringing in perspectives not that just are in the room, but also are integral to the process. Like, I mean, and we deal with, there's a lot of interest in stories in our business that come from different cultures, and I think that one thing that's always tricky in our side of things. I know we're going to get to this a little bit later, RJ, probably, but
yeah.
I didn't, if I didn't grow up with a story and it was part of what I was rooted in my sort of personal experience, I can't fake that, and nor should I either. I need to have your voice in the process. And the thing I think I've been trying to do as much as I can to create that audacity is to go from the sense of we're telling other people's stories so often, and for me, it comes down to what's wrong is I'm going to tell your story and I'm going to let you help. And it has to go to, you're going to tell your story and I'm going to help you.
And I'm going to provide the platform to do it in the best way possible. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
exactly. This is great. This is awesome. And I mean, you guys are nailing in like some really good details, because again, it's about doing what it takes to create something unique. I love how you said, the team has to reflect the people that you want to attract into the parks and these experiences. You want to be able to have, different voices at the table, and that's how you can avoid some of the murky past, that we've all have faced in theme entertainment. It's like now we're kind of cleaning it up, right? We're like doing a lot of things to kind of shave off some of the issues. And so let's talk into another one. This is a big one here, and this is for both of you guys. As storytellers, we face moments where we put guests in worlds that actually exist, and hitting those markers are crucial. So what's your take on cultural appropriation in theme parks and immersive experiences? We'll start with Free.
Yeah, how much time do we have?
We got like 8 minutes.
Listen, it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one, and I love that how you started this conversation, RJ, in terms of painting the picture as best as you could in that short period, because it is a very complicated history. And themed entertainment, which is established as a way to aspire for something else. Call it escapism, call it fun, call it innovation. It is an aspirational space to be in. And when you're putting cultures at the forefront of that aspiration, you have to ask yourself, what is the ultimate goal? What is the ultimate story that we're telling, or message? What's the takeaway? And we should always be doing that as responsible storytellers. And then knowing that the history of our industry has always been, designed or geared more towards one prism, typically Anglo, white male. It's really almost impossible to tell that story in a comprehensive way. And so the cleanup of that, we're seeing that happening now in attractions that are tested, that have become the mainstay, that have a lot of emotional resonance. There's questions about them, and there's outrage about them, of whether these should really be the way we're presenting different cultures. We have to deal with that now, even as we do a lot of projects that aren't in the US. There's a lot of themed entertainment that's developing in Middle East and China and other parts of the world. How do you approach those with that aspirational sensibility without completely missing the mark? And I think, again, it comes back to what's the story that we're telling, and how do we ensure that our team reflects those perspectives? So, for example, when we were working on the Bollywood theme park, which opened in Dubai, most of the people on that team knew of Bollywood, but didn't grow up watching it. And it isn't just something that you can just say, oh, you watch the movies, you're good. It really is something that's entrenched in culture and in family history and in emotion. And so it was really important to us and to the team in the beginning phases to have experts, not just on Indian culture, not just on South Asian culture, but on Bollywood as a genre, as part of the team, to keep us in check. Are we going to always get everything right? Absolutely not. But if the sort of gauge to make sure that you are still telling that story and doing it with the nuance that isn't offensive, or at the very least coming from an authentic place, that's always the way to start. But it's a tricky one, because I don't know that you can completely remove yourself from that. We're seeing that now, not just in themed entertainment, we're seeing that in pop culture, where you think of Black music and all the history and challenges that come with getting that to the mainstream. Now there's certain elements that are considered mainstream because a non-Black artist or musician takes that on, right? And then it becomes the thing. Is that cultural appropriation? Is that gratitude because now you're making it something that's more mainstream, which wouldn't have been had it not been? I don't know. I don't know that there is an answer to how to solve that, but I do know for sure that, at least for us in Myco 2, it starts with the team, and it starts with the why, the vision, knowing that the story that we're telling is serving the ultimate purpose of what's the message and what the message is that we're putting out, and making sure that we're reaching out to as diverse a pool to create that team.
Awesome. That's so good.
But David, I'd love to hear your thoughts too, because it's
sure. Yeah,
you come at it from a different perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, I was really like, I will say there was a case, I was thinking about this a lot over this week, and there was a case study that I thought was a very good way to handle this, which is, I think it was back in around 2009, Universal's Halloween Horror Nights out here in Hollywood did a maze based on the La Llorona folktale. And I thought that one of the things they did really successfully was to bring in not just a sort of like, okay, we involved a person of color, but they had like Diego Luna and some other creative collaborators who were part of the actual, because they grew up with these were their bedtime stories, and they saw all the different adaptations, good, bad, and ugly of that story. Not just there to sort of check off, yes, this is okay, and it gets our approval, but like we're actually involved in the creative process.
Yep.
And it felt like a very natural thing. And I would love to see more done like that. The other big thing to just touch on too, that I know both of you could probably talk about for way longer than we have time for, is depiction of, especially looking at other cultural stories, concept art in the themed entertainment business, and the guests that are in the concept art in themed entertainment is something that and the narratives that I do a lot of show writing. It's like the narratives we write, really checking yourself on showing the audience that is going to be there, so that they can, I see myself there if I feel like I'm somebody who would go to that event. And that becomes even more important when you're you're as Free has sort of said, like your guest in another country telling their stories to the people that live there. It's something that's not necessarily intuitive for everyone, but you have to make it a part of your process. You really have to. That's the thing that ends up being the good challenge of right now, especially. But it's something that we have no excuse to not jump onto, which is being comfortable, being uncomfortable, remembering to think about these things, and not allowing yourself to get complacent.
And what makes it aspirational, right? Like we're not in the documentary business. We're not in. We're in the industry of fantasy.
Right.
And there's a scale to that, right? How extreme and how immersive can you get even within that construct of fantasy and aspiration? And to me, it's always about what is the best of humanity? What is the essence of this experience, this story, this folklore, this culture, this textile? What is the essence of it that is universal, that allows all of us to be able to relate to it and not make it another culture, but make it something that we all can see ourselves in? And that's the challenge as storytellers, right?
Yeah. Well, and to find those things in yourself if you haven't before. Like, I mean, I think specific to horror, one thing that I've noticed is that in Western stories, there's usually like the monster and they're all bad or whatever. But in a lot of Eastern culture, the monster is a very nuanced thing. It has, good and bad. There's a duality, and that complexity is exciting. And it's something that we haven't seen as much as we could. But again, if we're going to tell those stories, we need to have the people who have that perspective, there to tell it.
Yeah.
That's great. This is all good. Believe it or not, we're coming close to the wire. We talk about this like, I know. Yeah, but this is such a great thing. And so just some last quick thoughts. And I'll give you guys like 20 seconds each. Now, what is it that you want to see to the very last thing? If there's anything you can tell the themed entertainment industry, this is the thing that I would love to see to create more opportunities for diversity and inclusion. Like, what is that one goal that you want to do to make that difference? Let's start with Free.
I want to see more presence and outreach in unconventional spaces. So while these traditional networking environments are great I love this collaboration with USC. because it obviously allows students an access point that they may not have, but that is still through USC. And there are thousands of other schools and universities that are harboring up and coming artists, designers, storytellers, writers, engineers. Our industry is a multidisciplinary space that should actually be inclusive of all these different skill sets. And the more we can reach out and put ourselves at HBCU institutions, at institutions that are catering to with people with disabilities, or nonprofit organizations that are targeted towards encouraging youth that have typically been outliers and giving them another outlook towards career, just sort of opening our minds to how to recruit and how to expand our outreach. I would have loved to see that when I was younger. And then really also to look at how our industry can expand beyond the Western sphere. How do we expand to Africa, South America, other markets that have these very exciting, think tanks of innovation, people who are coming up with cool ways to incorporate solar panels into ride systems, people who are coming up with their own animation studios, based on all these new techniques. How to adopt and incorporate some of that thinking that isn't necessarily under the Ivy League pipeline, and bring that sort of expertise and passion into our creative problem solving, because that's how we will survive as an industry. And that's how we will come up and continue to come up with relevant content and experiences that people are looking to us to sort of be the milestone for. Otherwise, it becomes a rinse and repeat. And eventually, it's something that could easily die out.
Yeah, quickly for you, David. What should?
I mean, amen to what Free is saying. I think the thing I always end up saying is, if I was going to make the next theme park tomorrow, the last people I'd want in the room are theme park designers, which is an oversimplification, but it's kind of true. And because that's how we're going to keep going forward. And I think the other thing that is most important for me is, a lot of people are like, we have to solve the whole diversity and inclusion, and we're going to do that, but it's such an undefined statement that it's not one specific action somebody's making forward. If I hope there's one thing people can take away, it's like, whether it's I want to see more representation in concept art, or I want to see outreach for auditions, pick a thing and really start to do it, because the only way we're going to get somewhere is if everybody is specific and actionable, rather than just we're going to solve this big problem. It's eating the elephant one bite at a time.
Yeah, and a post isn't enough.
Yeah,
exactly. Action is so important.
Hashtag is great, but action is even better.
That's exactly right. And I'm gonna leave everybody with this last thought. The industry is in a major shift. Innovation is a new perspective. It's crucial more than ever to have innovation. And diverse talent will get us there in a creative space. And the key is to challenge and demolish the mindset that got themed entertainment here in the first place. Being able to be honest about the issues, about what has come, and then how can we change that through our actions, besides, just passing the pamphlet and saying, this is diversity and inclusion, here you go, or we just have a small conversation here or there. I mean, those are also tools, but also taking action steps and empowering people of color, empowering different voices is what's going to get us to the next level. And so this conversation has just been amazing. I'm just so grateful for you, Free. Thank you, David. And thank you guys so much for tuning in here at T at USC. This is truly an awesome conversation. Diversity and inclusion is so needed for this industry. And with you guys and everything that you guys are doing and all the information that you shared tonight is golden. And I can't thank you enough. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Creating a smile, getting lost in the moment, and living the dream is what themed entertainment is all about. And here in Central Florida, we are the entertainment capital of the world, able to live that dream each and every day. A living celebration filled with artists, managers, engineers, and talent from across the globe. Diversity and inclusion for all walks of life, creating, building, learning, and growing together is the key to a bright future for the entertainment industry. The Creative Quest Foundation focuses on guiding minorities interested in pursuing a career in themed entertainment, providing a path to success with workshops, events, mixers, and more that will be life-changing and uplifting, while at the same time giving back to those in need. The Creative Quest Foundation, celebrating the power of diversity in the world of make-believe.